Rachel Ashwell's Shabby Chic principles apply as much to the garden as to the house. The rules of beauty, comfort, and function are just as important to follow in creating a successful garden as a home.
Whether big or small, the contribution that a garden can have in our lives really shouldn't be underestimated. Everything from just enjoying their beauty to being inspired or just having a restful place to be. They're wonderfully enjoyable, important things to have.
When Rachel moved into her home in Malibu, her first impression of the garden was less than exciting.
Certainly when I moved into my house, it wasn't really even kind of the feel of the garden that I wanted. It was rather spooky and tropical, which are two things that really aren't what I relate to. But just with a bit of brightening up and a bit of focusing on my palette and just bringing in a little bit of the English that I like, I really now do have that wonderful mix of a kind of Caribbean meets English, and I'm really very happy with it.
Rachel chose landscape contractor and designer Laura Knaus to help transform her garden. As Laura soon learned, no detail was too small to be considered.
I always try and make every little nook and cranny and even a passageway here count, which is why these do have their functions. I do actually use these when I jump out of the pool or the jacuzzi, but they're beautiful as well. But what you gave me was this wonderful scent that when I come by.
This is a jasmine vine, and you're right, in passageways it's nice to have something that you can smell when you pass by, and it also softens up posts and structural things, and it gives you some height in a narrow space.
And this little pink flower here,
It's a Chinese lantern, a butylon, and this is pink, and this also is in a tree form when we planted it, and it sort of gives you that same feeling of something tall, like the vines do. It cascades over, it's almost tree-like, but it doesn't have the shadows and the shading that most trees do. It's light foliage and it's airy, so you need that for your roses down below and some of the other smaller plants.
From the beginning, Rachel wanted Shabby Chic's light, airy feel throughout the house and garden.
Laura, I'm sure you remember when we first came to the house and it was all dark, the wood was dark. This was covered in ivy. Do you remember? It was literally going through the roof line. Now again, vines are a really useful thing to give us that kind of coverage.
And what I really love about a vine, especially with like the potato vine, it just sort of peeks into the window.
So Laura, even amongst all of my tropical gardens, I had to have a place for my English garden. And you really accommodated that beautifully. And I think, for the most part, we just added my pinks and my whites.
We used more of the flora abundance, the bush roses.
What I also like about the way this is kind of formed is that in a typical kind of English secret garden thing, there's a method to it, but it still feels pretty loose.
Well, it's part of that shabby chic theme of having a lot of things that work together, but still having kind of an eclectic mix.
The mixture of sun and shade in Rachel's garden was an ongoing challenge for Laura, especially around the fish pond at the end of the house.
Laura, this is probably one of my most important parts of my garden because it feels with the running water very spiritual. And I know that when we first walked through the garden, you said because of the shade and the light, that we were going to have to be very specific with what we could actually use here. So, of course, it was going to be very jungly. And then this one, I think I'm also very partial to, just because I like the lightness of it. It was pretty pretty.
Yeah, it's an arbicola, and you did enjoy that when we were first putting it in, and you liked it because of the variegation and the whiteness in it.
Yeah.
And there's a solid green one, but this one gives you a little bit of light and texture.
Still, Rachel can always find a way to add her Shabby Chic colors.
And then, of course, to really give us some colour, because even though I love the freshness of all the green, when there's some overflow of just some of the blooms, like the hollyhocks in there right now, or the camellias, we can plop them in there and get my colour. And then I wonder, what's that little fish thinking as that bloom comes down over him?
Rachel feels that creating separate, inviting spots like the jacuzzi adds to the charm of the entire garden.
So with the colour of the jacuzzi and all the moistness and textures and shapes of all the greenery that's around it, I really think that we have all the colour and just all the interest that we need. And I think it's really blended very beautifully. I think it's lovely.